In high-stakes negotiation, there is a single word that is completely misunderstood. It's a word most people are trained to avoid, to fear, something to be overcome. But you see, the elite operators, the ones who always seem to walk away with the better deal, they know this word isn't an obstacle. No, it's the key. It's the key that unlocks the real negotiation and kills bad deals before they ever get a chance to start. So let's just break this down for a second, because it goes against everything we're taught. We are all wired to chase yes, right? It feels like progress. It feels like a win. But what if I told you that very instinct is precisely what guarantees you're leaving value on the table? What if the chase itself is the trap? And that brings us right to our first signal, the agreement trap. This is the idea that our primary goal, getting to yes, is often the biggest strategic flaw in our entire approach. So here's the paradox at the heart of any deal. The common belief is simple. Agreement is progress. But the signal, what's really happening under the surface, is that a premature agreement actively hides critical information. A yes tells you very little, but a no forces reality to come to the surface. This is the essence of the agreement trap. It's that gut-level instinctual drive to get the other side to agree with you. But you have to understand this. Until a no is on the table, until it is a real, viable possibility, you aren't actually negotiating. You're just coordinating. The real negotiation only begins at the point of disagreement. Okay, so if the agreement trap is the signal, how does this pattern actually show up in the real world? And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. This is a dynamic that appears again and again across every high-stakes environment where refusal is the one tool that consistently exposes what's real. The whole key here is to completely reframe what no actually means. It's not the end of the conversation. It's not a failure. Strategic refusal is an analytical instrument. It is the tool you use to discover what is truly important, what is immovable, and where the actual boundaries of the deal really are. And you see this pattern everywhere. It's universal. In an M&A deal, a no on one specific term can suddenly shine a light on a hidden liability the other side was trying to skate past. In diplomacy, it exposes a country's real red lines. In a high-value sale, it's the only way to find out the real budget, not just the one they told you. Refusal is the constant. It forces the truth into the open. Just think about that for a second. Every single conversation before the first no is just positioning. It's just exploration. But the moment one side says no, all that abstract talk suddenly becomes very, very real. The priorities, the constraints, the real motivations, they all snap into sharp focus. That's the moment the game truly begins. So, a no brings clarity, but it does something else, something much more powerful. It fundamentally changes the power structure of the deal. So let's look at the game itself, the mechanics of how pressure gets shifted. Okay, let's walk through this. It's what we call the leverage transfer, and it's a really clean three-step process. First, party A says no. Bam. Instantly, the pressure, the burden of keeping that deal alive, it shifts away from them. Now, party B, the one who wants the yes, is forced to get creative. They have to come up with new proposals. The burden of creativity is now entirely on them. The bottom line is this. Refusal reorders urgency. The side that is willing to stop the deal, to say no and really mean it, they seize control of the timeline. They get to dictate the pace. The urgency to find a solution now belongs completely to the other side of the table. So what's the real cost of getting this wrong? What happens when you're stuck in that agreement trap? It isn't a collapsed deal. That's not the real cost. No, it's the ghost of the much, much better deal you never even knew was possible. This is the invisible cost that almost nobody ever talks about. Every single time you accept an offer too quickly, every time you say yes because you're afraid of hearing no, you are silently killing off all the better, more creative, more valuable deals that will now never ever see the light of day. You know, we get obsessed with the value we capture versus the value we concede, right? But that whole way of thinking completely misses the biggest piece of the pie, by far, the unexplored value. This is all the territory that was killed by a premature yes, all the potential you never even knew existed. So it's time to redefine what failure in a negotiation actually is. A deal falling apart because you held your ground, that's not the catastrophe. The true failure is closing a mediocre deal, completely unaware that a far superior outcome was right there, if only you had been willing to invite a no into the room. And this is what brings us to the edge.
The thing that separates the elite operator from everybody else. It's not about being aggressive. It's not about clever tactics. It's a fundamental shift in mindset. They're not chasing agreement. They are engineering clarity.
And this right here is the critical distinction. The amateur is focused on the outcome, getting the yes. The elite negotiator, though, is focused on the process, achieving absolute clarity on all the constraints, the motivations, the possibilities. They know that if you get total clarity, the best possible agreement will naturally follow. For them, the word no is completely detoxified. It's not an emotional insult, it's just a clean piece of data. It isn't the end of the road, it's the signpost marking the start of the real negotiation. And it's not some blunt weapon you use to attack with, it's a precision scalpel, used to dissect the problem and reveal its true nature. All right, so now let's turn this lens back on you. It's time to really examine the game that you are actually playing, but with a new perspective. First, I want you to ask yourself with total honesty, in your most important deals, is a fear of hearing the word no causing you to accept terms that are just suboptimal? Is that fear putting a ceiling on your success? Second, really challenge your fundamental belief here. Do you truly see constructive disagreement as a path to a stronger, more valuable agreement? Or, deep down, do you still see it as a conflict that has to be avoided at all costs? And finally, the next time you hear no, don't just react to the word. Instead, stop and ask a totally different question. What is the core, unstated interest behind that no? Because the answer to that question, that is where the best deal is always hiding.